Welcome back to Pokemon Episode Summaries. Today, I'll be doing episode 466, Gathering the Gang of Four. The episode begins with Ash eagerly awaiting his rematch with Brandon yet again. He was about to set off, but first, he was supposed to wait for something. So he stood outside the Pokemon Center with his friends. But whoever he was waiting for was taking quite a long time, so he was about to leave anyways. But then, who he was waiting for, Professor Oak, came out of the Pokemon Center holding a Pokeball, which he says that Tracy just sent over. Ash takes the Pokeball and thanks Professor Oak as he calls out Bulbasaur. Yeah, that's right, he had gotten Bulbasaur back from Oak's lab, and since Oak was there, Tracy had to be the one to send it. Ash, seeing his Bulbasaur, instantly brought back great memories, and Ash quickly turned to Pikachu and suggested that he go and play with Bulbasaur and reacquaint himself with him, and Pikachu did just that, going over to Bulbasaur and dancing with it happily. And the two Pokemon agreed each other, making Ash pleased that Pikachu and Bulbasaur still got along. Just then, Ash could hear Officer Jenny calling out to him as she drove up to Ash and the gang at Oak, with Squirtle accompanying her on a little mini motorcycle beside hers. As Officer Jenny and Squirtle sped towards Ash and the gang on their motorcycles, Brock instantly developed hearts in his eyes, falling for Officer Jenny. Squirtle, with its sunglasses on, then jumps off of its motorcycle and joins Pikachu and Bulbasaur and greets them, and all three of them essentially talk about how happy they were to see each other again as they all dance together and shit like that. This pleased Ash, although Brock was just pleased to see Officer Jenny, as he still had hearts in his eyes and tried to flirt with her, but he was broken out of his flirting trance by Max, who dragged him off by the ear. Ash then thanked Officer Jenny for bringing Squirtle, although Officer Jenny replied that it was the least she could do after Squirtle and his Squirtle squad had saved lives so many times by this point. May noted that Ash's Squirtle was a lot bigger than hers, and was about to send her own Squirtle out to play with Ash's, when suddenly she was interrupted, as Ash stated that there was just one more arrival to go, and it should have been arriving any minute now. Sure enough, after a few seconds, everyone looks up into the sky to see a silhouette resembling none other than Ash's Charizard, and as it gets closer to Ash and the gang, it grumbles with happiness to see Ash, which Ash could hear from a distance. Once Charizard landed, Ash waved to it, and Oak stated that Ash's waiting was now over, as Ash happily greeted Charizard, and Charizard happily greeted him back, although Ash greeted Charizard by hugging him, and Charizard, on the other hand, greeted Ash by using Flamethrower on him, and as a result, Squirtle, Bulbasaur, and Pikachu were affected as well by the Flamethrower, to the point where they were knocked down, but they quickly got back up, and May actually sent out her Squirtle to play with Ash's. And Ash's Squirtle definitely did play with May's, using Water Gun to keep May's Squirtle suspended in the air, so May's Squirtle didn't even hit the ground for a while, but once it did, the two started to dance gently together, pleasing May. Eventually, May's Squirtle even used its own Water Gun to keep Ash's Squirtle suspended in air. Once this was done, the two Squirtle resumed dancing, although Ash's Squirtle, being bigger, kind of overcame May's Squirtle a bit. Next, Brock hands Ash his backpack that was packed with a whole bunch of supplies, and Nurse Joy gives Ash some additional supplies, being a parting gift of homemade cookies. While Brock elaborated that he was sure he packed all the camping gear necessary in Ash's backpack for Ash's journey to the mountains. Max asked why Ash was going up to the mountains, and Professor Oak told him that it was so Ash could rediscover the feeling he had when he first started out as a trainer. So he can get more in tune with his Pokemon. Max then reminded Ash that Brandon told him that the most important thing regarding a Pokemon battle was putting the mind of a trainer in Pokemon to challenge and putting them in sync. So Ash promised that he would go camping to learn that lesson, to bond with his Pokemon, and also to find out how to improve his own battle style, to differentiate it more from others, so it would be easier for May to make her own battle style too. Max was admittedly a bit skeptical that Ash would actually stay on track with what he was going to do, but Officer Jenny, Nurse Joy, Oak, Brock, and May all maintained hope in Ash. Ash then clarified to Charizard, Squirtle, Bulbasaur, and Pikachu that together they would be walking to their camping spot to train for the battle pyramid, and he asked them if they were all ready to go. And in response, all four Pokemon give shouts of approval, but Charizard takes his shout of approval a bit further and uses Flamethrower on Ash, Pikachu, Squirtle, and Bulbasaur, pleasing Ash to admit that some things never change. Without further ado, Ash and his Pokemon got up and continued down a foresty path up the mountains, until eventually coming across a field with logs blocking the path, and also leaves on top of them, with Ash noticing that the logs must have fallen down at some point. Ash suggested that this would be a good place to set up camp, and they could use the logs to make a bed to sleep on, so Ash and Charizard throw the logs up into the air for a better angle for Bulbasaur, as Bulbasaur used Razor Leaf to slice the logs into small pieces, and upon Ash's command, each Pokemon caught a small piece of the log. After all the logs had been caught, it was getting a bit hard for all the Pokemon to hold them, but luckily they didn't have to, as they placed them down in the shape of a bed. Next, Squirtle used Rapid Spin to gather up all the leaves that were around the logs in one singular place. Squirtle does this, so Ash congratulates his Pokemon on their great job so far, although there were a few leaves that weren't quite gathered yet after the Rapid Spin, so Bulbasaur used Vine Whip to capture any of the stray leaves, and Pikachu used Quick Attack to do the same thing, and basically all the leaves were pushed inside of the bed structure to essentially create a cushion in the actual bed. So basically the leaves were like your bed sheets. Ash congratulates all his Pokemon on successfully making somewhere comfy to sleep, and Charizard instantly jumps in the new cushioned bed to test it out, but he ends up messing it up, scattering the leaves everywhere in the process. Charizard then went to sleep, while Squirtle was furious that Charizard messed up the bed and launched a Water Gun, hitting Charizard directly on the forehead, which woke Charizard up, and he walked over to confront Squirtle. Well, Charizard was so angry that it decided to take out its anger on both Bulbasaur and Squirtle. Bulbasaur and Squirtle were at first going to dodge, but Bulbasaur decided to fight back by using a Vine Whip on Charizard. But Charizard dodges the attack, jumping out of the way, So, Pikachu gets hit by the Vine Whip instead. Pikachu wasn't angry at Bulbasaur though, because it knew that Bulbasaur was trying to hit Charizard, so Pikachu takes its anger out on Charizard, using an Iron Tail on it to hit him. Ash saw that the fight between his Pokemon was getting pretty unstable by this point, so he tried to interfere with the fight and calm everyone down, but he stepped in front of Pikachu right as Charizard fired another flamethrower at Pikachu, so both he and Pikachu were burned by Charizard's flamethrower. This angered Pikachu even more, so Pikachu charged up a Thunderbolt. Ash tried to get in Pikachu's way and stop him, but Pikachu launched the Thunderbolt anyway, and shocked Ash, Bulbasaur, Squirtle, and Charizard in one blow. On the bright side though, this Thunderbolt seemed to calm everyone down. It basically shocked some sense into everyone. So they stopped the fight, and Ash instructed all of his Pokemon to follow him and help him go gather some food for the night. So they went down a path, leaving their bed for now, and soon arrived at some large trees that had a whole bunch of orange berries in them. So Ash told Bulbasaur to use a Razor Leaf and Vine Whip to get some of the berries down. But before Bulbasaur could do this, Charizard instead took action, flying up in the sky, and its wings started to glow brightly, signifying that it had learned Steel Wing while at the Charizard Valley, which Ash had picked up on. Charizard then flew around the tree and cut the fruit down, utilizing Steel Wing, getting plenty of orange berries on the ground. It goes to get some more down with another Steel Wing, while Ash congratulates it on learning a new attack. With all the berries down, and some still falling towards the ground, Ash didn't want the berries to get absolutely destroyed if they hit the ground too hard, so Ash told his other Pokemon to cushion their fall with Squirtle using Water Gun to keep the fruit suspended in the atmosphere for a bit longer, allowing Pikachu and Bulbasaur to use Quick Attack and Vine Whip to catch the fruit from the fall to make the fall later. Ash then congratulated all his Pokemon individually as they all examined the huge pile of orange berries, and quickly decided to take them back to their campsite with the bed. But by the time they did, the sun was setting. As for how the berries were brought back to the campsite, you may ask. Well, Pikachu was able to push them forward with a Quick Attack. Anyways, now that they were back at the campsite, Ash placed some of the other spare cut logs they had so that he could set up a little fire. Although they needed the actual fire to be lit now, and that was all up to Charizard, as it very excitedly used a flamethrower to light the fire, although the flamethrower was so strong that everyone had to back away a little bit so as to not get burned. Everyone was so startled by the strong fire that they had to fucking jump out of the way. However, there was something even worse, which was that the flamethrower was so powerful that it burned all the logs and the bit of kindling that Ash had put, although Ash realized that he didn't place enough kindling, and also Charizard needed to use a less strong flamethrower so it didn't burn everything. It only sparked a little flame, and sure enough, Charizard did this using a smaller flamethrower to light the fire gently, right as nighttime officially arrived. So Ash congratulated Charizard on successfully making the fire, and he and all his Pokemon sat around the fire as it glistened and sparkled under the night sky. The moon was making the fire look even more beautiful. While sitting around the fire, Ash decided to take a trip down memory lane with all of his Pokemon, remembering when he first started his journey as a trainer, almost being late to get a starter Pokemon, and he remembered rushing out of the house in his pajamas. And he also, of course, remembered meeting all 4 of the Pokemon he was currently with. And we see flashbacks of all this. First, we see Ash meeting Pikachu for the first time in Professor Oak's lab, and Ash recalled how Pikachu was very stubborn and didn't listen to him or respect him, but Ash eventually gained its trust when he saved him from a flock of Spearow attacking, and he and Pikachu had been best friends ever since then. Although Pikachu still wouldn't go into his Pokeball. Next, Ash turned to Bulbasaur and remembered when he first met him, which was when Bulbasaur was guarding a village of injured Pokemon run by Melanie, and it was protecting them from threats. And Ash especially recalled the time where he, Misty, and Brock saw Bulbasaur really wanting to protect an Oddish. And Ash also mentioned that not only did Bulbasaur choose to leave the village to join him, but he then decided to leave Ash to go live at Oak's lab to protect Pokemon there, such as Nidorans and Rattatas. Next, he turned to Charizard and remembered how, when they first met, Charizard was still a Charmander, and it had been abandoned by its original trainer and left out in the pouring rain, but he, Misty, and Brock saved it. Eventually, after joining him, it evolved into a Charmeleon, and would never listen to him. Once Charmeleon evolved into Charizard, though, and eventually listened to Ash, after Ash helped it out, Charizard had been responsible for Ash winning many battles, such as the one against Noland and his Articuno. A fucking Articuno! Not to mention Charizard almost beating Harrison's Blaziken in the Johto League. Ash then turned to Squirtle, and remembered when he first encountered Squirtle, when it was terrorizing a town with its Squirtle squad, but they eventually started to act nice and became firefighters, and Ash's Squirtle chose to join his team, even leaving his squad for a bit. Ash then ends his trip down memory lane by admitting that his journey sure had been full of awesome adventures, and he thanks his Pokemon for everything they had done for him. Now, morning had arrived, and Ash declared that today was going to be a day of training, but assured his Pokemon that they would have many breaks throughout the day to recharge. In fact, one of these breaks was right when they woke up, because they started by eating a full orange berry breakfast. First, Charizard practices its Steel Wing, showing it off gratefully, and then Ash, Charizard, Pikachu, Bulbasaur, and Squirtle go down to the river so Squirtle could practice its Rapid Spin attack while the rest of the Pokemon played in the water, and Ash cheered on Squirtle. After this, Bulbasaur practices its Vine Whip by destroying some rocks with it. As a reward for everyone doing well, Ash lets everyone go play by the river again, and everyone plays around, splashing in a small lake. However, after this, Bulbasaur realizes that Pikachu didn't have to do any practice, and he didn't think that was fair, so he playfully teases Pikachu, although Pikachu gets offended by this, so an argument starts, and Squirtle and Charizard get involved in the argument too, leading Ash to try and stop the argument, stepping in between all the Pokemon, but Pikachu once again just uses a Thunderbolt to shock him, Bulbasaur, Squirtle, and Charizard. Ash and his Pokemon were all immensely tired after this, so Pikachu and Bulbasaur just apologized to each other, and everyone fell asleep, getting some rest to recharge their mind. After this, everyone got up, and Bulbasaur practiced its Solar Beam, destroying some rocks with it. Although, it happened to destroy the rock that Ash and Charizard were standing on, so they fell down, but Charizard was able to fly and rescue Ash, bringing him back up. Pikachu, Squirtle, and Bulbasaur then form a chain to help pull Ash off of Charizard, making him dismount safely. Then, Ash decides that they've done enough training for the day, as it was getting pretty dark, so they all decide to have more berries for dinner, and Charizard starts up another campfire with a good enough flamethrower, and they all enjoy the warmth of the campfire underneath the moon, once again. Meanwhile, Team Rocket was spying on Ash again, utilizing binoculars from a cliff. Meowth started to cry out of happiness, remembering all the good old days where they would always try and catch Charizard, Squirtle, and Bulbasaur back in Kanto. Team Rocket then debated their next move, with Jessie suggesting that they steal all 4 Pokemon, but Meowth reminded Jessie that if they were able to have done that, they would have done that ages ago, back in Kanto. Basically, he didn't think they had the skills to steal all 4 of them. James agreed with Meowth, noting that if they couldn't capture them before, they definitely wouldn't be able to capture them now, since they only got more powerful since their days in Kanto. So James suggested that they instead just steal Pikachu, and Mime Jr. popped up his Pokeball to agree, and the rest of Team Rocket also agreed. So now Team Rocket just had to put their plan into action. And they did, as they proceeded to drive up to Ash and the gang in a van after going down from the cliff, leaving Ash confused as to what a random massive van was doing in the middle of nowhere. Although Team Rocket came out of the van when Ash came to greet them. Jessie and James were currently in cellar disguises, and they claimed that they were selling ramen noodles, and they even prepared ramen noodles for Ash, or anyone on the go. Ash was eager to buy some, so Jessie went into the back of the van to go make some noodles on the spot, although Jessie explained that the battery needed for the noodle making machine was completely dead, so the noodle making machine wouldn't work. This was all part of Team Rocket's plan, though, as James claimed that the noodle making machine would work if it just got charged up with some more electricity, perhaps from an electric Pokemon, and Ash instantly offered to have Pikachu charge up the battery. Jessie was very grateful and took Pikachu. Ash then got distracted as he fantasized about all the noodles he was going to have, and while Ash was distracted, Jessie and James quickly hopped back into the van and sped off. Team Rocket laughs as they stick their heads out the window before putting them back in, and Team Rocket's laughter snaps Ash out of his little noodle trance, and he realizes that Team Rocket had betrayed him. So he gives chase to the van with all his Pokemon following him. Team Rocket spot Ash, and they taunt him some more as they take off their disguises to reveal themselves as Team Rocket, and Meowth also reveals himself. Then, Team Rocket somehow fucking transformed the van into a metal version of their regular Meowth balloon, and go up into the sky, flying away. Luckily, Ash had a way to follow in the air as well. He hopped on Charizard with Bulbasaur and Squirtle, and they all flew after the Meowth balloon. Once Charizard gets relatively close to Team Rocket, Ash tells Bulbasaur to try and stop the Meowth balloon with a Razor Leaf, but the Razor Leaf was only deflected since the Meowth balloon was metal, and Team Rocket laughed, making fun of Ash for trying to attack the metal balloon. Ash assumed that fire could meet metal, so he tried to have Charizard use a flamethrower on the metal balloon, but the metal only absorbed the heat, creating a hot spot. So Ash got an idea and had Squirtle use water gun on the hot spot, hoping that would destroy the metal, but much to his surprise, nothing happened. Leading Team Rocket to brag that no attacks, not even fire or water ones, would work. Although Ash retorted that he had another idea. He would just have Squirtle and Charizard alternate their attacks, because eventually the hot and cold from the fire and water would have to mix and hurt the metal. So, sure enough, he just told Charizard and Squirtle to attack one after the other, and they bombarded the Meowth balloon with continuous flamethrower, water gun, flamethrower, water gun, flamethrower, water gun, therefore heating and cooling the metal, weakening it after every attack, to the point where the metal soon started to crack. Jessie and James didn't spot these cracks at first, so they laughed at the fact that Ash couldn't seem to grasp that no attacks would affect the metal, although Meowth was the first one to realize the cracks, and he got worried, pointing out the cracks to Jessie and James, noting that it was because of the sun changing temperature from hot to cold. With the cracks now weakening the metal, Ash and Bulbasaur used Razor Leaves directly on the cracks, which started to crumble the metal and the balloon as a result, causing the balloon to crash to the ground as Pikachu jumps out to safety. Freaking Team Rocket, including Mime Jr. and Wobbuffet, out. Pikachu then landed on Charizard, so Ash was happy to have him back. While Team Rocket ranted about how they had failed, Ash, Charizard, Pikachu, Squirtle, and Bulbasaur landed on the ground, and Ash had all his Pokemon team up with a variety of attacks to send Team Rocket blasting off, with Pikachu using Thunderbolt, Squirtle using Water Gun, Charizard using Flamethrower, and Bulbasaur using Razor Leaf. While Team Rocket blasted off, they were extremely frustrated, and to try and cheer herself up, Jessie started to devour a bowl of ramen that she was at least able to make for herself with Pikachu's electricity while they were riding away in the van. Although James, Meowth, and Mime Jr. wanted this bowl of ramen for themselves, so they tried to fight Jessie for it, although Wobbuffet butted in and tried to steal the ramen from all of them. We don't see who ended up getting the ramen, because Team Rocket had completed their blast off by this point, landing somewhere else. But Wobbuffet does get blasted off last, so it probably didn't get the ramen. Anyways, Ash then congratulates all of his Pokemon on a great job of dealing with Team Rocket, just like the old times, and he makes sure they were okay. When suddenly, he notices a weird expression on Charizard's face, and realizes that Charizard must have been surprised by something. So, Ash, Squirtle, Bulbasaur, and Pikachu turned around to see what Charizard had sensed. It had sensed something moving in a bush. And the thing that was causing the bush to move then revealed itself. Pyramid King Brandon walked out of the bush, and Ash immediately greeted him. Although Ash admitted that he was surprised to see him. Brandon claimed that he had told Samuel, his referee, that he was done with his expedition, but he was really just finishing something up quick. But now his expedition was finished, and he had actually seen Ash battle with all of his Pokemon there and was impressed by the combination attack that they just used, where they combined all of their different moves. Ash explains that the reason why he was able to do such a great combo attack with these 4 Pokemon was because it was the first 4 Pokemon he caught that he still owned, since he caught them. Brandon then stated what Samuel had said before, which was that Brandon had found the mod that he was looking for inside the sealed chamber, and now he was ready to battle Ash in yet another rematch. Although Brandon requested a bit of a different rule this time around, instead of a one-on-one battle like they've been having previously, he wanted to have a 4-on-4 battle, because he wanted to see what Ash could do with his 4 oldest Pokemon, and see if their bonds could triumph over his own Pokemon. Ash accepted, wanting to test this himself, so Ash and Brandon began their trek back to the Pokemon Center so that they can inform everyone else that the battle was about to begin, and when they arrived back, they were spotted and greeted by Nurse Joy and her Chansey, Officer Jenny, Scott, Professor Oak, and May, Max, and Brock, as well as the Battle Pyramid referee, Samuel. Scott then mentions to Ash, once Brandon and Ash had confirmed they would be battling soon, that if Ash ended up winning against Brandon, he would be eligible to become a new Frontier Brain. Everyone was shocked by this, so this makes Scott realize that he forgot to inform Ash of this previously, so he apologizes and takes Ash and the gang inside the center so he can elaborate. And they basically sit in the lobby where Scott explains that winners of the Battle Frontier were entered into the Hall of Fame of all trainers, which made them eligible to become Frontier Brains. And since Ash could potentially collect 7 symbols once he beat Brandon, then he'd be eligible. As plenty of other people walked through the Pokemon Center, Max asked if a new Frontier Brain could set up their own battle facility, and Scott, of course, confirmed this. And also added that the Battle Frontier was always looking to add new Frontier Brains to it in exchange for other ones, because basically, if a Frontier Brain kept getting beaten, they didn't really deserve to keep being a Frontier Brain, and they could be exchanged for someone who could actually beat them. Ash realized that Scott knew a lot about the Battle Frontier, and questioned how this was possible if he was just a fan. So, Scott shocked everyone when he revealed that he was not just a fan of the Battle Frontier, he was actually the owner of the entire Frontier. He set it all up. Max and May get excited at the prospect of Ash being a Frontier Brain, imagining the type of battle facility that Ash could control, and all the fun things a Battle Frontier Brain could do. Although Oak showed up and reminded Max and May that Ash still had to beat Brandon before he could even think about becoming a Frontier Brain. And Ash agreed, so May, Max, and Brock, as well as Oak, gave Ash some last-minute encouragement, stating their belief that he could definitely beat Brandon. We then cut to inside the battle pyramid that had been set up for the upcoming rematch between Ash and Brandon, as Ash and Brandon were on opposing sides of the battle pyramid field, and Samuel was in the middle as the referee, as usual. Samuel even opened up the roof of the battle pyramid by pressing a button. Nurse Joy and her Chansey, as well as Scott, Officer Jenny, Max, May, Brock, and Oak were all watching the battle, and May commented that Brandon must have had Samuel open up the roof to give Ash's Charizard more space to fly, assuming that Ash would of course use Charizard, since he was going to use him, Bulbasaur, Squirtle, and Pikachu. Samuel then introduces both Ash and Brandon, and instructs them both to send out their first Pokemon, with Brandon being told to send out his first. So, Brandon sends out a Pokemon that Ash didn't know Brandon even had, being a Dusclops, and Ash immediately after this sent out his Charizard, deciding to take advantage of the ceiling immediately. It's been a while since May's seen Dusclops, so she scanned it with her Pokedex to learn more about it. Oak knew that Ash's Charizard was powerful, but he also knew that Dusclops was a powerful mon too. Charizard started to fly towards Dusclops, while Nurse Joy and Officer Jenny were impressed seeing Charizard's speed. Brock tried to hop in the middle of the two of them and stated how impressed he was too, but he said that he was more impressed with Officer Jenny and Nurse Joy's beauty and would like to take them out on a double date. And he literally started to spaz out, saying he would go crazy if he couldn't, although Max shut him up by dragging him off by the ear. And Scott told Brock to shut up because he really wanted to focus on this battle, which had now officially begun with Charizard using a flamethrower on Dusclops, although Dusclops was able to block the flamethrower by using a Will-O-Wisp, forcing both attacks to collide, and both attacks essentially cancel each other out, disappearing. May and Max were worried, assuming that all of Charizard's attacks could get countered, but Brock told them not to worry, because he saw that Charizard was going for a new move, Steel Wing, which Brock was surprised by, because Steel Wing had only been shown to Ash. This Steel Wing doesn't really do much though, because Dusclops hit Charizard first with a Shadow Punch, which knocked Charizard back onto the ground, bringing up dust, amazing Nurse Joy and Officer Jenny by Brandon and Dusclops' power. However, Charizard was able to recover and use a Dragon Breath, which scored a direct hit on Dusclops. This hit kept Dusclops down for a little while, but it was able to recover, and then it used a Mean Look, which kept Charizard essentially trapped in battle, and Ash would be unable to switch Pokemon, which was what Oak explained anyways. Max bragged that he already knew this, although May was amazed. She had forgotten about Mean Look's capabilities. Next, Ash has Charizard go in for another Steel Wing, so Charizard charges up its wings and lunges towards Dusclops, and the Steel Wing hits directly. However, Brandon had a stone face. He had let Charizard hit the Steel Wing. He didn't bother with telling Dusclops to dodge at all, which shocked everyone in the audience, although they quickly saw why. It was because, since Charizard was so close, Dusclops was able to grab on to Charizard's wing and stop it from going farther away, and this in turn allowed Dusclops to use Confuse Ray, which confuses Charizard. So Dusclops jumps off it, and Charizard crashes into the floor because of confusion. It couldn't even fly anymore. Ash tries to call Charizard back into its Pokeball, but that fails because of Mean Look, which Ash was surprised by, because he forgot about Mean Look's abilities, which made Oak a bit mad at the fact that multiple people forget about Mean Look's abilities, but Nurse Joy and Officer Jenny had forgotten about them too, so Oak had to explain to them. Ash told Charizard to hang in there, but it couldn't even hear him because it was so confused, so Brandon took the opportunity to order Dusclops to use another Shadow Punch, which sent Charizard flying back into a wall. Ash tried his best to have Charizard recover, encouraging it to get up. And Nurse Joy and Officer Jenny were praying that Charizard could get back up, while Brock was trying to send for them, but they weren't listening. Charizard wasn't able to get back up before Dusclops was able to use another Will-O-Wisp and have it surround Charizard. Ash knew that if he wanted to win the battle, he would have to break Charizard out of its confusion, and he figured he could do this by reminding Charizard of its past battles. So he did this, reminding Charizard of the fact that the two of them had worked together in battles for a long time, and Charizard had beat a fucking Articuno and a Blaziken. Charizard really wanted to break out back into its senses as well, and he was able to, so it fired off a Dragon Breath. And Charizard roared with pride as the Dragon Breath made direct contact with Dusclops, pushing it against the Battle Pyramid wall. Brandon comments that Ash can awaken Charizard's fighting spirit and tells Dusclops to use Will-O-Wisp, which scores another hit on Charizard, sending it back a little bit. As a result, Charizard was pretty tired after taking all that damage, and Dusclops was almost equally as tired. It was basically equal. However, despite Charizard being weak, after some encouragement from Ash, Charizard was able to lunge forward with another Steel Wing, hitting Dusclops directly. Everyone in the audience started to panic, stressing that Charizard would run out of steam, especially since Dusclops was able to use the Steel Wing to its advantage, and it was able to grab on to Charizard's wing. However, Ash actually used this to his advantage, as he told Charizard to use a Seismic Toss, now that Dusclops was grabbing onto Charizard. However, much to Ash's surprise, and everyone in the audience's surprise, Dusclops vanishes from Charizard's grasp suddenly, leading Brock to comment that fighting-type moves didn't work on ghost types like Dusclops, with Ash kicking himself, realizing that he forgot about that bullshit. Brandon declares checkmate to Ash, saying that it was over because of Ash's mistake, having forgotten about the ghost type's immunities to fighting types, as he tells Dusclops to finish Charizard off with one last Shadow Punch. His attack slams into Charizard, making Charizard fall to the ground, knocked out. Which was confirmed once the dust from the attack cleared, and Samuel was officially able to declare Charizard unable to battle. Ash was panicking now that one of his most powerful Pokemon was down, and he realized that the chances of him beating Brandon and earning the shot to potentially become a Frontier Brain were pretty low at this point, as Brandon and Dusclops stood and wondered what Pokemon Ash was going to send out now that Charizard was down. What would Ash do against Brandon? Find out in the next episode.